There's a facility in Qatar called Ras Laffan Industrial City, a complex so large it is visible from space, a cluster of liquefaction trains and export terminals that stretches across Qatar's northeastern coastline and produces every single day more liquefied natural gas than any other facility on the surface of the Earth. 1/10 of all the LNG that Europe heats its homes with, that Japan runs its power plants on, that South Korea uses to manufacture its electronics. 1/5 MEF of all of it comes from Ras Laffan. This morning, Iran sent 2 drones. One found a water tank at the Mesa Yad power plant. The other found an energy facility inside Ras Laffan Industrial City. And QatarEnergy, the state company that operates the largest LNG export facility on Earth, issued a single statement that contained the most consequential sentence in global energy markets since Russia invaded Ukraine. Due to military attacks on QatarEnergy's operating facilities in Ras Laffan Industrial City and Meizd Industrial City in the state of Qatar, QatarEnergy has ceased production of liquefied natural gas and associated products. Ceased production, not reduced, not paused pending damage assessment, ceased the complete shutdown of 1/5 of global LG supply in a single Monday morning statement with no timeline for resumption. While QatarEnergy declared force majeure on its contractual obligations to deliver LNG to its customers. Force majeure, the legal declaration that a party cannot fulfill its contracts due to circumstances beyond its control. Every long-term LG contract between QatarEnergy and every European utility, every Japanese power company, every South Korean industrial buyer, every one of those contracts is now suspended under force majeure. The gas they were counting on for this spring and summer, the gas they needed to refill storage ahead of next winter, is not coming. There's no timeline for when it will come. In the Strait of Hormuz, through which all of Qatar's LG would travel, even if production resumed tomorrow, has already largely stopped all tanker traffic. European natural gas futures soared after the shutdown. The Dutch TTF natural gas contract, considered the European benchmark for LG prices, rose more than 25% in the morning. European benchmark gas futures jumped the most since the energy crisis in 2022. Goldman Sachs analysts warned of massive 130% upside risk for European gas prices, potentially hitting 74 mellow if LNG flows are blocked. Experts cited by Russian trading data warned that a protracted conflict could lead to spot gas prices in Europe, rising to $1,000 per 1,000 cubic meters or more. $1,000 per 1,000 cubic meters. That is not a war scenario from a risk assessment document. That is the live trading floor projection being circulated in European energy markets on Monday morning, March 2nd, 2026. While the facility that supplies 1/5 of the world's LNG sits dark in northeastern Qatar with no restart date. The threat to security of supply is here and now, said Simone Tagliapetra, an analyst at Bogle. The extent of it will depend on the duration of the shutdown, but we are now into a new scenario. A new scenario? That phrase from one of Europe's most respected energy think tanks is the professional equivalent of saying that every plan European governments made for energy security this decade was constructed around an assumption that is now false, that Ras Laffan would keep running regardless of what happened in the Middle East because Qatar was above the conflict. Because Iran would never target the infrastructure that funds Qatar's entire economy, because economic self-interest would restrain the hand reaching for the drone controller. Iran reached for the drone controller, and now Europe is in a new scenario with no map. Stay with me, because Ras Laffan going dark is not just an energy story. It is the moment the chess game that Russia and China have been playing since January 2026 revealed its final configuration, and every piece on the board is exactly where Moscow and Beijing needed it to be. Russian oil and gas companies are clearly benefiting from the events unfolding in the Middle East. Their stock prices continue to rise. That sentence from Russian trading data published this Monday morning is, "This is not a theory. This is not speculation." What is happening right now in the Middle East is a mechanism. And once you understand the mechanism, everything you're seeing in the news makes perfect sense. Russia's Gazprom, Rosneft, and Novatek are rising in value on the Moscow Stock Exchange. Their share prices are going up. Not because Russia did something brilliant on the battlefield, not because they launched missiles or sent troops anywhere. They are going up because everything that competes with Russian energy in the global market is shutting down at the same time. The Ras Laffan facility in Qatar, which directly competes with Russian gas for European customers, is dark. The Strait of Hormuz, which carries the oil of Russia's competitors to global markets, is conditionally closed. The Saudi Aramco refinery at Ras Tanura, which processes 550,000 barrels of crude oil every single day, has been shut down as a precautionary measure. Oil and gas production has stopped in Iraqi Kurdistan. Several major Israeli gas fields have sharply reduced their exports to Egypt. One by one, every energy competitor Russia has is going offline. And Russia has not fired a single missile to make any of it happen. This is the part you need to sit with for a moment. Russia is winning an energy war without fighting one. While American jets bomb Iranian nuclear sites and Iranian missiles strike Gulf refineries and airports, Russia is watching its stock prices rise and its strategic position improve with every passing hour. Kirill Dmitriev, the special representative of the President of the Russian Federation, went on the record this Monday morning as European gas prices surged 50%. He reminded Europe about its decision to stop buying Russian gas. He said, "When you see a higher energy bill, remember happy Ursula and Kaya." That message, delivered with deliberate cold precision, was directed at European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Charles Michel, the two officials who spent 3 years building the entire sanctions architecture designed to cut Russia off from European energy revenues. That architecture worked. Russia's gas revenues from Europe fell. But the alternative supply source that Europe spent 3 years building its entire energy independence strategy around, Qatar's Ras Laffan, is dark today. And Europe has no third option that can deliver gas at scale before next winter. That is where we are. That is the situation on the ground right now. Putin spoke by phone today with the President of the United Arab Emirates, the Emir of Qatar, and the King of Bahrain. 3 Gulf leaders, all on the same Monday morning. These are the same leaders whose territory is being struck by Iranian missiles, whose energy infrastructure is shutting down, whose American-supplied Patriot defense systems have failed to stop the attacks, and whose interceptor missile stocks are running dangerously low. Putin did not call them to offer military assistance. He did not call them to threaten them. He called them to position Russia as the one stable, serious power that both sides of this conflict can talk to. While America is asking Italy to carry its ceasefire proposals to Tehran, and while Iran is categorically rejecting those proposals, Putin is on the phone with the Gulf's most powerful leaders, presenting himself as the reasonable option in an unreasonable world. Every Gulf leader who takes that call this morning is quietly running the same calculation. They are asking themselves whether their future security partnership looks more like the American model, which has produced burning refineries, shut airports, failed missile defense systems, and depleted interceptor stockpiles, or whether it looks more like the Chinese model, which comes with anti-stealth radar drone technology and no wars being fought on their soil. Rob Gist-Pinfold, a lecturer in defense studies at King's College London, told Al Jazeera that Iran knows exactly what it is doing by targeting the Gulf states. He said these countries have less appetite for a fight because, at the end of the day, this is not their war. Iran is banking that they will want a ceasefire as quickly as possible, that they will pressure the Trump administration to end the conflict, because it is simply not their fight. That analysis, delivered by a serious Western defense academic in real time as Gulf energy infrastructure burns, explains the entire strategic logic Iran has been operating on since day one. Iran is not trying to defeat the Gulf militarily. It cannot. It is trying to make the Gulf states' tolerance for American military presence so painful economically, so costly physically, so damaging diplomatically, that the Gulf leaders themselves force an American exit. The Ras Laffan shutdown is the clearest single demonstration of that logic in action. Qatar did not want to be in this war. Qatar hosted Al Udeid Air Base because it had no real choice. Iran struck Ras Laffan, the facility that is essentially Qatar's entire national income, because the message to Doha needed to be written in the language that Doha understands best, which is energy economics. The message is simple. You housed the jets that killed our supreme leader. Your LNG plant is dark. Now decide whether America is worth what this is costing you. The former Qatari Prime Minister, Sheikh Hamad bin Jassim, said publicly what every Gulf leader is saying privately. He said this is not our war. Our missiles are running low. And if we and Iran exhaust each other, the only country that benefits is Israel. This brings us to a phrase that Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov used in a briefing with international correspondents this Monday morning. He said 5 words, "The plan is working perfectly." And when you look at the strategic situation from Moscow's perspective, it is very difficult to argue with him. Because here is what America's strategy has actually produced by day 3 of this conflict. According to a report sourced to an Iranian official with knowledge of the American approach, the United States is now trying to persuade the rulers of Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, and the UAE to declare war on Iran directly. Not regime change, not democratic transition, not ceasefire through Italian diplomats. The new American objective is to convince America's Gulf allies to step into the operational front line of a war so that America can step back while those allies absorb the next wave of Iranian missiles with interceptor stocks that are already nearly empty. And what about Europe? Bloomberg's energy reporters covering the live market made it clear this week. Even if the United States boosts its LNG production, it is unlikely to be enough to offset the supply loss from Ras Laffan in any meaningful near-term window. QatarEnergy's Golden Pass expansion project in the United States is scheduled to begin in the coming weeks. but the facility will not reach full operational capacity until next year. Not this winter, next winter. That gap, 12 months or more between what America can offer, what Europe actually needs before winter, is the strategic space that Russia now occupies completely. European gas storage is at unusually low levels. The continent needs to import large volumes of LNG this summer to refill storage before winter hits. The intraday price surge this week, the biggest since Russia's invasion of Ukraine 4 years ago, tells you everything about how exposed Europe's position actually is. Goldman Sachs has already issued a formal warning of 130% upside risk in European gas prices if LNG flows through the Strait of Hormuz remain disrupted. 130%, and the only gas supplier on the planet that can move pipeline volumes to European markets at the scale and speed needed to prevent an energy catastrophe before next winter is Russia. The country that Ursula von der Leyen spent 3 years trying to permanently exclude from European energy supply. The country that has not fired a single missile. The country whose stocks are rising while everything else burns. Traders, according to market reports, are still assessing how long the conflict will last. That variable determines whether Europe faces an energy crisis or an energy catastrophe. If Ras Laffan restarts in 2 weeks, the damage is severe but survivable. If Trump's bombing campaign runs for weeks, as he indicated to reporters on Sunday evening, if Iran continues striking energy infrastructure with every new attack wave, if the Strait of Hormuz remains conditionally closed with mines in the shipping lanes, then Europe's storage will not refill before winter. And the only available alternative will be the one that 3 years of sanctions were specifically designed to make impossible. Saudi Arabia announced it would take all necessary measures to defend its security and protect its territory. The United States, Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE issued a joint statement condemning Iranian attacks and affirming their right to self-defense. Affirming their right, not exercising it. Because every Gulf leader who has watched their refinery burn, their LNG plant go dark, their airports shut, and their missile defense stocks deplete knows what actually exercising that right means. It means the next Iranian missile wave lands in a city that still has tourists in it. It means property values that took a decade to build collapse in a week. It means the expatriate workers who built Dubai and Doha into the world's most successful development stories board the first flight out when the airports reopen and never come back. This was never their war. It was made their war by a country that took off from their runways on a Saturday morning without asking for permission. And now that same country is asking them to fight it. Ras Laffan is dark. 1/5 of global LNG supply is gone with no restart date announced. European gas prices are up 50%. Goldman Sachs is warning of 130% further upside. Russia's stock market is rising. Putin personally called 3 Gulf leaders this morning. America is now asking Gulf states to fight Iran directly on its behalf. And the only country on earth that can replace Qatar's gas before next winter is the one that Europe spent 3 years trying to permanently exclude. The plan, as Russia sees it, is working perfectly.